from
During the COVID times, I was like literally pulled into a barrage of like web development classes. And that's basically how I really got started and introduced to, programming. And my first programming language was just the basics, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. As I learned more and more, I felt like the traditional learning method, like going to classes and where they teach you like, try to replicate this app that we built, it's not very effective. And I didn't really understand really like the computational thinking or computational action behind it. In the end, I feel like coding is more about understanding why we're using the syntax and understanding this language and being familiar with it. If you're just merely copying and pasting, you're just learning the skill of copying existing code into your own program, not really understanding how do you solve problems, which is a very important skill in coding, because once you code something, 80% is debugging. And debugging, you're most likely not going to find stuff online to solve it. Yeah, sure, there's Stack Overflow, but most of the times, you're going to have to figure it out yourself. So if you're just merely learning how to copy and stuff, I don't think that's going to be that beneficial in the long run. Well, a lot of people say I'm crazy, and I believe I am crazy in sometimes, because my approach may be a little bit unconventional, because I love pushing myself to the limits and really work myself to almost dying. So what do I mean by this? First of all, I do not want anyone to let me just work myself to death. No, that's not okay. You do not want that. You need to make sure you have a healthy balance between your work-life balance. But I'm saying that when you're trying to achieve this goal, let's say write this paper or understand or learn this concept, right? You're gonna have to fully immerse yourself in that field.
guys. Before we get into the podcast, 91.6% of you guys are not subscribed. So please do hit the subscribe button, since it will help get even crazier guests and blow up the channel. So yeah, let's get back into the video. Welcome everyone to Artificial Intelligence 101, a live podcast event hosted by the Appen Club and the Gen Z Fastlane. I'm your host, Bosco Yu, and today we have a special guest here, Tianyi Huang, aka Tony. He's the founder and president of Appen Club, the first student ambassador for the App Inventor Foundation, and an LLM research engineer intern at MattrixxxXXX AI, formerly known as MathGPT Pro, a YC startup. So why don't we give Tony a warm welcome?
Well, I was gonna say thank you, Bosco. I'm thrilled to be here, and let's jump right into it.
Yeah, sure. So initially, my first question is, what inspired you to start, coding in AI?
I see. To be honest, during the COVID times, I was literally pulled into a barrage of web development classes. And that's basically how I really got started and introduced to, programming. And my first programming language was just the basics, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. But as I learned more and more, I felt like the traditional learning method, going to classes and where they teach you try to replicate this app that we built, it's not very effective. And I didn't really understand really the computational thinking or computational action behind it. So afterwards, when I actually felt like coding was something important and it's a skill that I really need to be good at, then I jumped into self-learning, where I watched a huge amount of YouTube videos, tried a bunch of random hobby projects, just making goofy and fun projects that I really wanted to do. I also made a bypass VPN so I can access random websites math games in school and stuff like that. And those are what I did to really be good and understand how coding actually works. And as for AI, well, this is a completely different topic, because ever since I look at the revolutions that define each generation, with Apollo missions in 1960s, and then the Macintosh in the 1980s, 1990s, the internet, and now we're in the 21st century, right? And then we see the big bang of AI. And when ChatGPT was first released in 2021, I was very excited, because it wasn't just another technology advancement. It was a shift for this new AI revolution, right? We're on this start of a new revolution. And no one really can tell AI will be purely beneficial or pose challenges for humanity. But one thing I want to say for certain is we are the next generation right here, right? I bet a lot of the audience here are students. So we are this next wave of generation, the next wave of AI leaders. So I don't think this is just like a career choice for me. I feel like it's my calling. And every time I imagine the future of AI and how I can contribute, I really feel like a sense of responsibility. I'm very excited. And that's why I read so much like research paper in the field of AI. I watched so much videos and tried so much stuff.
Nice. Yeah, that's super really inspiring. And I completely agree. Like, we're definitely the future of AI, right? So, in terms of your self-learning and self-taught resources, could you mention some examples of what you use to, teach yourself how to code?
Yeah. So when I took matters into my own hands, I turned to like resources such as W3 schools and like lead code. And also like at first I didn't really use VS Code. I used something called Repel It. Have heavily recommended if you don't want to like install IDE into your computer. And then I also like watch a bunch of YouTube tutorials. I bet like if you search up, oh, how do I create my React app? You'll find like a 20 hour long video on
Yeah.
YouTube guiding you through it. I did not watch it on like normal speed. It take way too long, like literally 20 hours. So I usually watch the video in like two times speed or just jump right into like the important parts. Or I just literally just go onto some people's like GitHub and then like clone their repository onto my own computer and just understand what they're trying to do and understand their code. So
Awesome,
yeah,
awesome. So, yeah.
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, so just I guess like looking at other people's projects and then cloning into them and then making your own innovation or implementation. So in terms of like MIT App Inventor, how do you get involved with this project and what's the overall idea with this platform?
I think when I first like I guess like saw MIT App Inventor while searching through a bunch of platforms for making apps, well I found MIT App Inventor. And it was a very visual block-based programming interface and it really changed like the way I saw like coding education because the way I first learned coding as I mentioned was not very effective because the teacher was literally just like here's a React to-do list. This is my code. Please copy my code.
Hmm.
I don't understand how you're really supposed to learn by just copying someone's code. Because in the end, I feel like coding is more about understanding why we're using the syntax and understanding this language and being familiar with it. If you're just merely copying and pasting, you're just learning the skill of copying existing code into your own program, not really understanding how do you solve problems, which is a very important skill in coding because once you code something, 80% is debugging. And debugging, you're most likely not going to find stuff online to solve it. Yeah, sure, there's Stack Overflow, but most of the times you're going to have to figure it out yourself. So if you're just merely learning how to copy and stuff, I don't think that's going to be that beneficial in the long run. So when I saw this like programming interface that's block-based and more focused on understanding and making this programming thinking more approachable, I was very like impressed by it. And then the idea behind MIT App Inventor is to really make technology open. It's more about like empowering students, empowering people, regardless of their background or technical background, and to bring ideas to life through apps. And this perfectly aligns with the mission of Apping Club and my personal passion for making technology more inclusive and accessible. I was so inspired that I reached out to them and then I got my first student ambassador and in fact, this role itself didn't exist. I actually proposed to them. I was like, "Oh, can I do a summer internship here?" They're like, "No, we don't have a position available this year, unfortunately." I was like, "Oh, that sucks." Wait, what about I invent a new role real quick? And then so that's why I proposed like the student ambassador program in like our partnership with Apping Club. And then that's how I was able to now act as the first student ambassador, working on developing AI ethics frameworks and curricula to really uplift communities through technology.
Awesome. Something I like that you mentioned there was how you persisted to continue, inventing a new role even though they didn't have a role. And I think that's a skill that, anyone who's looking for an intern or any opportunities out there should also consider doing, which is just to be proactive, right? Just reach out to other people as well. So could you briefly explain why you choose MIT App Inventor over other prototyping platforms as well?
Well, I think MIT App Inventor really stands out because of its focus on education and accessibility. Since, well, I know there's like Scratch out there, but you can't really make like a functional app really with Scratch. Because Scratch is more about purely education. But MIT Inventor is different. You can actually make functional app that's usable. And in fact, once you create an app, I don't know if you know this, but you can really like upload your MIT Inventor app, like download the APK, and then upload it to Google Play Store. So it can actually become like a real app. Um, so that's very impressive. And also, it's very on pace. For example, when AI came out, they added in new experimental AI features such as chatbot, DALL-E. It's very up to date. And then if using MIT vendors like existing local blocks that's not enough, guess what? You can just hook it up to your local like coding services such as Node.js for the backend. So therefore, you can basically code your own AI models and then link it with MIT Inventor for the front end instead of rather having to set up a React app and do all the hosting and connecting and routing. And another thing I want to mention is that it's, as I said, it's very good for beginners and educators, but it's also good for advanced programmers because it's very easy to use. And then that's why it's like very impressive how they do it because they really strike a balance between simplicity and functionality, making it really ideal for maybe like prototyping an app or for education purposes. And then plus, well, MIT Inventor is backed by the top researchers from Google and MIT, so it's a very credible platform with a very strong community because they have like over millions of users.
Yeah, got it. So in like this whole MIT App Inventor, what are some interesting projects that you've previously seen?
Yeah, so in MIT Inventor, one of the pretty good, interesting app that one of our members made this year is called Smart Vision. It's like an app where you can like put your phone and just scan through your environment, and it helps visually impaired by telling them orientation data using a computer vision model to identify like objects in the surrounding, and it'll use the vision that it detects to translate it into audio, and then tell the blind person what is ahead of them. And if there's any like, oh, there's a car in front of them, it's just like, oh, there's a car in front of you, and then the blind person will know like, oh, I need to like be careful, I need to stop. So I feel like that was pretty impressive, and it's a very good cause. Um, I guess another very interesting application for MIT Hunter was how someone used it to create this very it's like a game. I was very impressed by it because they literally created like Flappy Birds in MIT Inventor. I was like, oh wow, because usually you see like the apps like oh helping environment, helping education or stuff like that, right? But then I saw like a game that was really impressive because there was like so much components that they had to do and so much like code that was in the back end to make sure like it actually functions properly.
Awesome, awesome. So moving on to App and Club, of course, as I mentioned in the beginning, you're the founder, which is a nonprofit organization for students to create apps. So could you also expand more on what the core mission, the core goals for App and Club is?
Yeah. So the Apping Club, as I said, it's more about providing this free open access to leading information in AI and technology. And I feel like it's all about leveling the playing field because our mission is to provide this access to resources in AI app development to students around the world, and it's free, right? We aim to build this global community where young innovators can collaborate, learn, and develop solutions to real world problems. And we aim to break down these barriers, regardless if it's geographical, socio-economic, or educational, because a lot of talents are being undermined, but opportunities are not. By providing tools, mentorship, and support networks, we hope to inspire the next generation of tech leaders who are not only skilled, but also ethically conscious. Since, as you know, in this world of research, so much students are not able to explore their potential because they don't have good mentors, because they don't have the resources to do research, because research is not a cheap thing, right? You need to have
Mhm.
a lot of resources to do research. In fact, if you're not doing computationally based research, more like biology based, what do you need? You need labs. And guess what? In a lab, you need to do web bench procedure and all those like a lot of contracts, and to make sure the safety procedures are right, you need training. How is a student, a high schooler, supposed to get those resources? It's almost impossible, unless
Yeah.
maybe let's just say, oh, my parents is the lab employee. Well, don't you think it's kind of unfair how those students get such a
Yeah.
leverage compared to the underprivileged ones? So in Apping Club, we understand it's impossible to create a like quote unquote equity or equality in education. But having us out here providing this free resources for everyone, providing these opportunities is important because regardless of who you are, you can access these. So even though it's impossible to achieve quote unquote true equality, we aim to make the world a better place.
Awesome. So diving deeper into the overall procedure of Appen Club, for example, if a member decides to, join Appen Club, what would kind of be like the week-to-week basis or some of the event examples that they would attend or they would participate in?
Yeah, so in Apping Club, we offer several avenues. So for example, events. We have podcast events just like this one right now, which is a very unique one because usually it's not me talking. But yeah, we have a lot of events that are instructional based. We have courses, seasonal courses. For example, we have the Thanksgiving crash course that occur annually. We have the summer crash course, and etc. And then for every competition, such as the Congressional App Challenge and the MIT Summer App Song, we usually offer training programs beforehand. So allow members who are interested in competing or like interested in winning, like have a better chance. We'll provide them some tips and then have like help them team into groups and etc. And aside from that, we also provide a lot of volunteer opportunities. So as you know, in America, there's this award called Presidential Volunteer Service Award, which is awarded by the AmeriCorps. And then in school, if you want to graduate high school, you also need certified volunteer service hours, and those can only be provided by 501c organizations. So Apping Club, we are a 501c, so we can also give out service hours, and members can volunteer at Apping Club to help, like for example, help out with our initiatives, mentor other members, or help out with general like operations or whatever, and then they can gain these service hours. And if they're willing to take it one step further, they can apply for our officer application, which occurs every like once a while. And then when we open it, they can apply, they can become an officer, and then really contribute to our mission. But yeah, and then we have like this cycle, I guess. For example, when a member joins, if they're like in our statistics, around 30% of members that join don't really know that much about coding. They're very beginners, right? So when they join, they'll first learn. They can learn by using like the resources from our experienced member and their past experiences. Like for example, what are the best resources to do to learn coding? What are the best resources to do to learn MIT Inventor? And they have this like community to ask questions for. They'll first learn, and they like participate in events. Once they're good enough, they will probably move on to something called competitions to really challenge themselves, create projects, and hopefully get some like achievements, right? So then that's the next step, competitions. And then after they do competitions, regardless of win or lose, it's more about experience, right? So afterwards, they can come back and volunteer and mentor students. So then they will be helping out the new members. So we aim to create this healthy balance of members to help out each other.
Awesome. So it's basically a cycle. No matter where you are, you'll always be, participating in some sort of thing. So more to the business sort of side, as in the marketing scene, there's so many noise out there, right? There's so many different clubs. So how do you manage to promote this club to over 10 countries and get more students involved right now?
Well, I think like it's really we haven't really done that much like business growth to be honest, because well, if you check out our finance committee, we got like one officer right now. So in terms of outreach, it's more about organic growth at the moment. We try to leverage social media to spread the word, such as LinkedIn, Twitter, but we have not expanded to platforms such as Instagram or Facebook or anything like that yet. We might in the future, but currently it's mainly just like word by mouth and then hosting these virtual workshops, hosting in-person events, participating in the in-person conferences to get our name out there. And then we also partner with organizations and nonprofits such as the Appy Foundation to help us tap into a wider audience, to tap into another world. And we also have like a lot of chapter clubs in Apping Club. So they're like local leaders creating an Apping Club impact in their local community, maybe in their school. So that's like I guess one of the biggest way of expanding Apping Club because they will be able to like really establish a unique local impact. For example, we have chapter club in San Diego. And then in San Diego, because they're very close to the US-Mexican border, they were able to like try to do some like Mexican education and then speak Spanish to teach those Spanish students how to do MIT Inventor. So that was very inspiring. But yeah, we do like a lot of promotion in terms of like encouraging members to create chapter clubs in their local community to share, well, the name and also share our impact.
Awesome. So diving a bit more into Appen Club and the future of Appen Club, what's the overall vision for like the next 5 years or the next 10 years? And is this for like the long term?
Yeah, so I think Appen Club definitely for like a very long term. In fact, even in college, since I'll be going to college very soon, I think
Mm.
I will still be like making sure Appen Club is still running. And in fact, I want to take Appen Club to the next level once I go to like college. Okay, expanding Appen Club to become a college club and also to become an international global club. So how am I going to do this? My plan is the following. First of all, because of my personal connections with like so much college students, and then they're also all really passionate about Appen Club and our mission, and they really want to help students. I feel like it will be pretty easy for me to establish a network of Appen Club in a bunch of colleges across the US. So that'll be the first step, establishing these chapter clubs in colleges, not just high schools. Second, our vision is to one, now we will be start outsourcing fundings, because one of our biggest initiatives is one, the student teacher collaboration. Second, the research student collaboration, because we want to help students, provide them a better research opportunity and also provide teachers a better way to teach AI curriculums. Because in this world, I mean, in this era right now, since AI is being so prominent, we need to have a way to teach AI for early age. Because if we
Yeah.
don't, how are students going to be surviving or thrive in this age of AI? So those are our two main premises and focuses. So in order to achieve it, we need some sort of funding. So currently we're trying to reach out to companies such as Microsoft, Google, and etc. for potential funding and partnership, establishing some initiatives together to work on some projects and hopefully, well, make it happen, right? In terms of actually like promoting and then growing it more, once we partner with those organizations and get the fundings, I think we'll definitely be trying to establish an HR department in Appen Club. Because right now we don't really have a designated department for managing training officers, training new chapter club leaders, bringing in volunteers, and then really discussing with new members on what they should be doing. That's one of our limitations of Appen Club, which is we don't have enough people designated focusing on like welcoming the people that join Appen Club. So that's one of the new department that will be opening soon. And then following it, we'll definitely be having like an officer application portal open specifically for that department.
Nice, nice. So breaking further into the importance of networks, and for example, let's say someone listening here wants to start, their own club as well. Like, what advice would you provide a beginner for, networking? And how, like, what do you currently do to you build your network and really have people to rely on as well later on?
Yeah, so I think to be honest, you should just first you start with your local community, right? Like first you try to build from start, right? Well, at the start, when I first started Apping Club, it was just me and Richard. There were two people. It was just me and Richard, and then I had the idea for like 5 months until I actually like made the Discord server, made a website, and I invited some of my friends in, such as Aria, Richard, etc. And then later, through word of my mouth, I tell them like they can invite their friends in and then slowly grow. But then once we actually started hosting events, like quality events, then that started making people like, oh, these events are good. I should share them with other people. So I feel like it's very important to focus on quality than quantity. Well, I mean, you obviously still want to have quantity. You don't want to just like, oh, let me just have one event per year.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh my god, what's going on with this club? It's dead. You always have one to like, keep a regular pattern for events. We usually at Alpine Club aim to host at least one event per month, and some months, for example, like the summer, we will have a huge amount of event because we are planning something big. Such as this summer we had the MIT AI Education Summit, where we like had a lot of volunteers and admin club member participation. But in general, at the start, it's really more about establishing a very strong network of events, and then through those events, you will gain people who are interested in supporting you. And then once you find them, then you want to definitely like reach out and connect back, and then you build those connections from the start. And then through them witnessing the growth of your club, then your bond will probably grow stronger. And then as your club's mission and image, public image grows better and bigger, then you start reaching out to other organizations to partner to help expand your name, right? Because partnership is a very, very good thing, because you can work on a conjoined initiative while also sharing a very good cause, right?
Awesome, awesome. So it's through, the word of mouth and also the power of referrals, which really grows the club and sustains it for the long term. So moving to MathGPT, right? Like, how's the development going on that side, and what's the overall idea behind this GPT?
So currently, MassGPT is a very exciting startup. And then for me personally, since I'm a research LM intern, I'm currently working on a multi-agent collaborative framework with RAG to enhance the accuracy for mathematical computations using LMs for specific problems, including calculus 3. For example, if you ask like ChatGPT a problem on green theorem from calculus 3, they'll probably not be able to answer it that well. And in fact, the response for almost all the more complex questions give you like a really long paragraph chunk. So my work is more about like making that better for the users. As a student who like took AP calculus, I understand like what we actually want, right? We do not want to see like a paragraph long text saying like, yo, you gotta do this, this, this. That's very boring, and I'm not gonna use it. It's not very helpful. All I need to know is just the specific steps that are necessary and what it means and then the answer, right? So I can just like look at the step and understand what's going on. So my job is to basically try to build a better agent system to decrease hallucination. And then also recently, I've been working with my small team that I manage to develop a TI-84 simulator, because I think something that's very important is like the TI-84 instructions. Since while I was taking calculus and math class, well, every once in a while, I have to search up these random videos on finding TI-84 instruction, like, oh, how do I graph polar functions in my calculator? And the videos are often like 8 minutes long, which is very annoying. So currently we're trying to do like an automatic system to show users the steps. And you guys, maybe after a few months, might be able to see this function in production in the MassGPT platform.
Okay, so now this is super interesting because in the beginning you mentioned how you self-taught yourself, all of these coding and AI skills, and now you're in the works of MathGPT. So what is your overall perspective on the future of education and tutoring? Like, do you think AI will play like a huge role in replacing these tutors, or what's the overall mix here?
Yeah, so I think that's a very good question, because as of right now, it's a very interesting topic. For example, a lot of people perceive human tutors as more credible. They perceive them as better than AI. That's why you will find people paying more money for human teachers for group classes rather than paying an AI like the same amount of money. Like, do you think it's more like, to be honest, I feel like this is a general bias, right? If you have let's just say we have an AI, and this AI will help you with SAT prep, would you be willing to pay $1,000 to learn with this AI for a month compared to a group class for a month for $1,000? You're definitely gonna be more inclined to paying a teacher, like a real person teacher, that $1,000 because it makes sense, quote unquote sense. But you will not be willing to pay the AI because you feel like, oh, it's an online subscription, it should be cheap. So
Mhm.
this causes this very big conflict between the point of interest of the users and the people who are creating the products. I feel like AI should be a very good tool in analyzing data, because after all, it's trained by data. So we should definitely use it to help analyze and support the learning of students. And we can create personalized AI tutors. For example, in MathGPT, if you check, one of our new features that released in the summer was personalized AI tutor, where if you can draw write a math question, right, and then you can like press the voice AI and ask a question and be like, oh, what should I do from this step? And then it will capture whatever is written by the user on the whiteboard, and then feed that into an agent, and then the agent will respond with like whatever is needed on like what is the next step through the voice. So it's multimodal, but I feel like that's more interactive and more one-on-one. I feel like that's a more reasonable direction to go into. But aside from that, another very big concern is the ethical consideration between AI. Because a lot of people are scared, like, oh, what about my data, right? What if I'm scared to ask these questions to this AI because well, they will know who I am, they will know my data. That's very scary. So that's another question because that's a very hard problem to solve. So to be honest, what I'll say on this topic is just called don't tell AI personal data. You should never tell AI any personal data, especially in this day and age where quantum computing is becoming more and more viable. Because as quantum computers develop, well, guess what? Regardless of whatever encryption that exists in this world, cybersecurity will all be turned over because they can perform calculations so fast that all type of security measures can be broken in like seconds. And the only way to counter it is through another quantum computer. But then the question comes, running a quantum computer costs so much money. How would you make sure that this company is running this quantum computer 24/7 to protect your security? Because the only big company that out there that you can trust, I mean, quote unquote trust, you don't really know what they're doing, is Google. Google have their own quantum computer. Apple, if they make a quantum computer, will also trust it because they're big companies, they're rich, they have a lot of money. But no one really understands what are they doing with our data. Because yeah, sure, they can say like, oh, we are not gonna do this, we're not gonna do this. Or like the law says you're not allowed to preach such certain data. But how can you really make sure you can't? So that's why you just don't give it the information in the first place. So that's why I highly advise everyone here to really be careful with the information you give to the AI. Because you never know, maybe one day you'll come back and backstab you. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I always believe that, like, from right, yeah. So, from the latest trends of the 21st century, we've seen lots of big data companies, right? So I was saying with big data companies, being the trends in the 21st century, right? What do you think is the impact of current software and AI? And do you think we're in like a bubble right now?
Sorry, that was just a bit funny. Okay, so I think like as of right now, the field of AI is very big, right? There's so much different fields, like ML, LMs, and then so like deep learning, machine learning, reinforcement learning, large language models, generative AI, ethical AI, safe AI, effective AI. There's so much field. Like, and then like all the popular companies right now are like what? ChatGPT, Claude, Anthropic. Like I mean, Anthropic with the Cloud 3, ChatGPT by the OpenAI, and then Gemini with Google. Those are like what's popular right now, but they're not like all of AI. AI is very big. Most people right now, the AI that we perceive are all classified under NLP, which is natural language processing. And in fact, in NLP, there's many divisions, and an LM is one of them. And all of our Gen AI that we see, quote unquote, right now, are classified under large language models. Why? Because it's very clear. It's trained by large language. And models such as ChatGPT and Cloud are very impressive in their ability to understand and generate human-like text. They're very good at, like, for example, drafting emails, answering questions, and doing very systematic approaches. For example, if you ask ChatGPT to like, oh, I have this document of blah 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 names and email. I need you to match them for me. They would do much better at that task rather than if you like, oh, I have this logic
咩？
puzzle.
俾我邊日咧？
try to solve this logic.
我只想让
You're gonna definitely struggle with that logic puzzle much more compared to something like a systematic-based task. This is normal because this is determined by the data that they're trained on. And that's why with companies such as Nvidia focusing on stuff like data centers, you probably heard of it, because data centers are so valuable right now. As we train more and more models, as we try to improve more and more models by stacking the nodes, guess what's gonna happen? Well, the data that we have is gonna run out eventually. We don't have infinite data, unless you synthetically generate data. But synthetically generating data equals you're not solving any problems. If you have this error that just exists in your data and you synthetically generate similar data, well, that error is just gonna recurse and continually get worse and worse, which is not okay. And that error sometimes is oftenly regarded as hallucination, which is where they provide incorrect or nonsensical answers. This is a very big issue. And additionally, they can reflect biases present in that data. And that's why you might see a bunch of like funny posts on Twitter talking about ChatGPT bias towards a certain race, which is very bad. But it's because of these data, right? It's because of the data having a bias towards these topics that the AI have a bias towards these topics. It makes sense. And in order to try to mitigate these issues, that's where we try to think about, oh, what can we do to add limitations and safeguards in these AI systems? Well, if you ask me, myself, I mean, I don't really know. This is an issue that has been like stuck in this AI field for so long. AI researchers have been struggling with this issue for years. It's not an issue that we can just solve instantly, like, oh, let's just do this and it'll be done. No, we want to try a lot of different mechanisms, and then something like RAG might be one method, or try to retrieve more relevant information to the task, or we try to add limitations or barriers, more agents, better agent system, etc. Those are all attempts in solving this. But in the end, I still feel like, as I said, there are very different avenues of AI. A lot of people right now are polled by the allure of LLMs, large language models. But then they sometimes forget the other AIs in deep learning models, where we try to develop neural networks. With like very famous neural networks like AlexNet, XLNet, those kind of stuff, we often forget those neural networks exist. And we often forget the research being done to improve such neural networks. And that's why I want to mention that maybe in the future, it's not just about can we try to prompt it better. It's more about can we build a better foundational model? Because all these models are foundation models. And in order to really truly make a change to this field, you have to develop a new one, a new network that transcends the pre-existing way of processing data.
Awesome. So following up on the overall concept of RAG, and for those who don't know what RAG is, it's retrieval augmented generation. Could you explain a bit more why it's so powerful and what do you think the next evolution of RAG is?
Yeah, so retrieval augmented generation enhances large language models by integrating them with external knowledge sources. So traditional models rely solely on just their training data, which can be outdated or incomplete because they're trained on so much data that they're gonna eventually forget or miss out some of them, right? And so the RAG is to basically allow the model to retrieve the relevant information from databases or the internet in real time while generating the responses. So you know how like every single time when we ask ChatGPT, we write a prompt, right?
Yeah.
So the purpose of RAG is to basically retrieve relevant information based on the question that you're asking and then add it to your prompt. So for example, my prompt might be, how do I solve a chemistry question regarding distillation? And then maybe the RAG will go search a AP chemistry textbook, and it will find a definition for distillation, and then put it into your response. And then this way, the LM is able to have a much better time finding the information that it needs from the database to respond with information that are more accurate and more up-to-date. And then for the next evolution of RAG, well, I think they will become more personalized and context-aware. And in fact, I feel like they can maybe integrate multimodal data. Since right now most of the RAG system are more limited in terms of like one modality, aka text. In the future, I feel like RAG can even become images, audio, and videos to provide more responses in a more multimodal way. And additionally, through combining RAG with advanced reasoning capabilities, perhaps through neurosymbolic AI, this could allow models to not just retrieve and present information, but also analyze and interpret it more deeply. Ethical considerations, I think in this field still really remains very important. So we have to really make sure that these systems provide accurate, non-biased, appropriate information. And maybe we can do this by providing a bias checker agent while it retrieves information. So maybe it retrieves the information and then we have a checker for bias to make it unbiased.
Mm. So before we jump more into, different types of AI and later on, for someone who's probably listening to this podcast, right? They
Mhm.
probably think that research is super intimidating and seems like you're an expert in, AI and everything. So for someone who's especially really young, why should they consider reading like a long research paper compared to like watching a YouTube video or, just reading just a general article? And what are some of your top strategies with analyzing these papers?
Yeah, so I think like to be honest, I am well, a lot of people say I'm crazy, and I believe I am crazy in sometimes, because my approach may be a little bit unconventional, because I love pushing myself to the limits, and really like, well, work myself to almost dying. So what do I mean by this? First of all, I do not want anyone to like, yo, let me just work myself to death. No, that's not okay. You do not want that. You need to make sure you have a healthy balance between your work-life balance. But I'm saying that when you're trying to achieve this goal, let's say write this paper or understand or learn this concept, right? You're gonna have to like fully immerse yourself like in that field. For example, maybe you wake up, you read some papers on that field, you scroll through archive, and you'd be like, oh, what are the most recent paper on LLMs? And then when you like brushing your teeth or something, you pull up YouTube and be like, oh, AI news, and then just listen to it while you're brushing your teeth. And then on the way to school, you do the same thing. And then once you come back, when you're working on an AI project, you try a bunch of AI projects, you open up the GitHub, and then you search for such projects, and you try to replicate it and try to understand it. You try to immerse yourself in every single way. You try to really dive into this field. You try to be at the front line of this field. That's how you can become really like immersed in those fields. I know this sounds kind of stupid, but when I first encountered challenges while I was doing research, I just searched into a bunch of research papers to find solutions. And sometimes, well, most of the papers are honestly like 20 pages, but there's like long papers. They might be like 50 pages. Those research papers might look very daunting, but honestly, it's very like rewarding sometimes if you're reading the right papers. If you're reading like non-relevant papers, that's not very useful. But to me, reading research paper is like unlocking a treasure trove of knowledge that's not available in summarized formats. So for someone younger, engaging deeply with research papers really sharpens their ability to critically think and problem solve. It exposes you to these leading information and teaches you how to approach problems method like with a very method-like way, because you follow this scientific way of solving problem. You have the hypothesis, you have the statement, you do the experiment, you do the result, and also these stuff are all completely reproducible for others. So for example, for like me, if I want to try it out, I can follow their methodology and try to replicate it, and it'll work. It's very cool. And plus, I feel like it builds resilience, because as you learn to navigate this complex information and persist through challenging materials, you're able to build your own set of knowledge base and resilience to false information. Because sometimes when you're reading like some news out there,
Yeah.
to attract to the audience, it might be biased, and they might stretch it a little bit. Makes sense. But that's why I feel like you cannot guarantee information is not unbiased. That's impossible. But if you read through a lot of information from a lot of venues, research papers, the news, like publication websites, Medium, and then YouTube, and then you build your own knowledge base, then you can form your own opinions. So my resilience is not about like your personal resilience. I'm talking about resilience to false information and having your own sense of opinions on information. So, and then you mentioned like, what is the most effective way to read paper? So that depends on what your purpose is. So me personally, sometimes I literally just go on the archive and then start spamming through paper to really understand like, oh, what's going on recently. So while I'm doing that, all I do is just I skim through the abstract to see if this paper is it interesting to me. If the abstract is bad, I ignore it. And next paper, right? And then once I find an interesting paper, then I'll scan through a diagram first, because the diagrams usually will show the entire methodology. So I scan through the diagram and see if oh, is this interesting? And then if this topic is really interesting, then I'll consider scanning through the entire paper, which the most important part, I believe, is the introduction, the methodology, and the results. I know this sounds stupid. It's like literally all the paper, right? But most of the paper, introduction is basically an extended abstract of the abstract. So it provides more information on the background context of, oh, what is the field doing? Very similar to related works, but shortened. And then they talk about like, oh, what did they do that was different, which is very important. The methodology, if they have a very big diagram, that means that that diagram usually covers most of the methodology, which is great, because that means that you don't have to read through the entire methodology. You can just read through the diagrams, read through the captions, and really understand what they're doing. Then you're fine. Results is to see, oh, how good really is their method? How impactful is it to the field? So usually you will want to see benchmark testing compared to other standards to really see like, oh, how do their model compare to pre-existing models in the field? That's a very good thing to see. And you might also see something like t-test to compare their confidence intervals or something like that. But I think like while reading the paper though, I take notes. This is very important. A lot of people when they take notes, they follow very similar to like in English class, you like annotate. It's a very different type of notes. Annotation, I believe for research, is more about jotting down questions and jotting down, like if you have unfamiliar terms, definitely search it up immediately. Do not wait. Do not just be like, oh, I don't know what this term means. Let me just wait. No, search it up immediately. It's not that hard. Google takes like 10 seconds. Don't be lazy. Search it up. That's how you learn. But in general, you want to jot down the question, jot down potential ideas that you think. Because when you're reading a paper, you want to critique that paper. This is very important. You want to have a critical mind. If you do not read a paper with critical mind, this will cause you to think, and like every paper is like, oh, this paper is so good, this paper is so good. No, every paper have its limitations. You have to identify what those limitations are so you can develop your own research ideas for your future research projects. A lot of people ask me like, oh, how do you brainstorm such good ideas for your projects? I cannot think of them on the top of my head. I read a bunch of paper to develop what I know about the current field and what is not good, what is not being done. Then I can do it. That's research. Research is not about, oh my god, I just solved cancer real quick. Oh, I just found a biomarker. That doesn't happen. That's luck. Like that, most of the research at that level is more about luck, right? But normal research is more about small improvements or testing a method. If it doesn't work well, then analyze why did it not work well. So I provide other researchers a knowledge on this information so they don't make the same mistake, or they have like, oh, this method works well for this situation, so while I'm working on this situation, I should use this method. Stuff like that. It's minor improvements. And then after a bunch of researchers do it, it stacks up, right? And every once in a while, someone might get lucky, and then they'll make a big paper, such as Attention's All You Need by Vaswani, one of the most popular papers right now because of the transformer model and LMs. So I think in research, it's really more about having a critical mind. Be very critical about it. And then develop your own knowledge resilience.
Nice, really nice breakdown of research there, Tony. Really appreciate that. So, going a bit more off topic, so we're definitely going to explore, other AI stuff, but I just want to ask you like this super interesting topic where, with Gen Zs probably listening to this podcast as well and young individuals, like most of our attention spans are probably decreasing because of social media and so many distractions and stuff like that. So, with this concern in mind, do you think it's because people haven't found their passion yet? That's why they're not doing like these intense research? Or what do you think is the overall problem and solution to our decreased attention span, especially in such an internet heavy world, which doesn't seem to stop any time soon?
This is a problem. I feel like this is a problem that a lot of people faces because this is not really a problem of like, oh, can I just solve it by making them do research? No, it's more about the way you treat problems and what do you want to do with your life. Um, for example, if my job in this, I mean, if my goal in this life, all it is just to like live a chill life, be
Hmm.
chill, then my motivation to work beyond the limits might not be necessary. Whereas to me, I enjoy pushing the limits because, like for example, I work really really hard for this research project. For every single time when I write a paper, this is very bad, but I usually stay up really late to make sure the paper I finish whatever I need to do, and I just keep working, and I might sleep for like 3 hours a week. I mean, no, 3 hours a day for a week. That's what I meant. 3 hours a week is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But that's like for like maybe the last week before the deadline, right?
Hmm.
So, and then once I submit, I'm like very nervous, and then hoping I win or something. Hopefully I get accepted to the conference. And then like the satisfaction you get once, regardless of like the result, then you wait like a month for the result or something. Regardless of the result, the moment you finish that research project, you feel this sense of satisfaction. I feel like this is not just about research because I play tennis, right? When I play tennis, I work really, really hard to develop this motion. And then once I really perfect that motion, well, not really, you cannot really perfect a motion, but once you become good at that motion, become smooth, the satisfaction you get on accomplishing this challenge is very satisfying to me. This might not be satisfying to everyone, but to me it is. And this gave me a huge amount of motivation in doing work. For other people, it just depends on how do you define what is important to you. If you want to, if you're a person who is currently struggling to do work because of procrastination and you want to do
Yeah.
work, then it's more about forcing yourself to have an external motivator. Because in psychology, since I personally learned neuroscience, you yourself is very bad at motivating yourself. You
Yeah.
think you're very good at it, but you're not. And then you don't want to tell someone else to motivate you because you're scared that if they do, then you actually have to do the work. So therefore, what you do is called you push yourself and be like, yo, hey, call your friend or your parents and be like, yo, can you just make sure like every day at this time you're checking on me to make sure I'm doing this blah blah work, right? It's very annoying. But having that is a very good external motivator. And then plus your own personal motivation. Like you, for example, maybe like say this project is due in 2 weeks. You change the deadline to this week. And then you also create a very well-defined to-do list. I really love to-do lists. A lot of people think like, oh, I have everything in my head. That is 100% not true. And also, did you know this fun fact? The more you think about the information, the more it's more you're more prone to forgetting it. Yeah, it's very
Hmm.
weird. Like in memory, the more you like try to like think about a past event, the more easier for you it is to forget that information. So, guess how do you not forget it? You write it down. Yeah, you write it down. You're not gonna forget. So what I do every day in the morning, I used to like write it down on paper. I literally have this right next to me. See, seven, bro. Okay, okay. Well, okay. That kind of sucks. Okay, yeah, yeah. Now you can see
Oh,
7 days
nice.
a week to-do list. This is very, very good. I used to do that, but now these days I have like my personal Google Calendar, which is very good because I can show like the time and it'll remind me. I set like the triple reminder, like oh 1 hour before event happens, remind me. 2 hour before, remind me. So like that. I feel like this is very good because it reminds me like oh I gotta do this. So when I see those reminders on my phone, I'm like oh I need to stop. I need to do those work, right? So yeah.
Nice. Since you pulled that out, I also have like something like this along the lines, but it's just more like scheduling, I guess, like blocks.
Hmm.
So I always believe like to-do list is good, right? But then if you don't put like time into like when you're gonna do that thing, you're probably gonna procrastinate on the big task. So like I guess like writing it down, just scheduling blocks is also really useful for anyone who's looking for tips there. And actually, very funny point because I was actually thinking of another question, and because I was thinking about it too much, I also forgot about it. So that kind of proves your point as well. But yeah, I was gonna talk about how, this whole cycle of just getting started is really super important, right? Because once you get started, then you put in the hard work, and once you put in the hard work, you have the satisfaction, it just keeps going on because the brain needs dopamine and stuff like that. So for yourself personally, what was your inspiration? Like, was there someone who inspired you to get started in the AI field, like right in the beginning?
To be honest, my start is actually very weird because in COVID, since like we don't have school, it was like very sad because the online classes we just sat in our room with like a lack of social communication, so kind of boring every day. And then that's where social media became like popped off, right? So I always predicted. Well, at the start of my high school, just for context, I was very interested in physics. I don't know
Mhm.
why. Maybe because of childhood stuff about like time travel or whatever. So I was like, oh, I should check out string theory. I should learn quantum mechanics. Obviously, it was not viable to learn all of that. It's really hard. But I always predicted that in the future, there will be for AI to really become big, right? For AI to really become fully integrated into the world, for the revolution to start, there has to be something that makes people familiar with AI first. Since
Yeah.
in order for such a for technology to be so influential but so controversial, the only way for this technology to be incorporated is to become an integral part of a person's daily life. Because AI have a very negative connotation to it because of sci-fi movies. Sci-fi movies portray AI as killer robots that's gonna destroy the world. They're gonna become sentient one day and just gonna kill everyone. With movies like the Terminator. This is wrong. This is not true. So what is really gonna happen is for people to get past that bias. We have a technology where everyone uses and they rely on it. This is very scary because humans should not rely on AI, but this is a very
Mhm.
important part of how AI is going to become big in the world. And then when ChatGPT came out, I was like, oh damn, this is it. Because this is going to be something that people are going to be using it to cheat on homework. They're going to do it, like they're going to make it like, oh, write my essay for me. And then people are going to start relying on it. And then everyone's going to start using AI. Because if the next generation, they're using AI to do their homework, they're gonna rely on it more and more and more because it's like an avalanche. It just stacks up, and then it's gonna cause an issue, and everyone's gonna use it. So that's why when I saw it, I was like, "Oh damn, my prediction came true." And if I want to survive in this next world, I need to like do this. If I don't do this, I'm gonna be like left behind. Because when I was thinking about what is gonna be happening in the future, I was just thinking like, how are all the fields gonna change? First of all, I know that all the fields are gonna change because of AI. Second, I know that a lot of fields are gonna get displaced because of AI, such as factory workers. But I also know that if factory workers get displaced, there will be new job opportunities coming
Yeah.
up because of AI. For example, people who clean AI, which doesn't exist before, but now it will, right? I mean robots. AI doesn't really need to be cleaned. It's like software. But you get my point, right?
Yeah.
And then also, it's like a lot of jobs are gonna change because of AI. So in order for me to really survive and have my dream of really making an impact, I need to become a leader in AI. And then this was a very rare opportunity because AI is getting started. Well, it has not been getting started. The neural network have been there for over 20 years. But this AI, the AI revolution, is starting now again. And in order for me to take on this adventure, I will be at the same starting lines with everyone else because this AI ChatGPT released in this period. So everyone else is seeing the same thing I am seeing, right? So that means that I do have this chance to make a very significant impact in this field compared to other technology such as the iPhone. The iPhone has been there for like what? Like since 1980s. How am I gonna make too much a significant impact when people have been doing research on this thing for 40 years? It's not gonna happen. Actually, I'm not sure if it's actually 1980s. I forgot when the first phone came out. Can someone fact check that? When did the first iPhone come out? Bruh. Okay, I'm very wrong. I think it's 2007. But what I was trying to say is just like a lot of the AI, it's like very new. So it's very easy for people to do research on this compared to other fields like cancer, where there has been so much research done and there has been so less gaps for people to do research in. Because research, you have to find stuff you can make a breakthrough on. AI is so new, and that's why there's research paper coming out about AI every single day. That's why you are able to scroll through archive, you see paper publishing every single day about AI. Any other field, that's not gonna happen because it takes so much time to develop or write a full research paper. Because you have to do so much procedures, so much experimentation that might take a very long time.
Yeah, this is super interesting because you're looks like you're really, high optimist of AI, right? And technology and stuff like that. So I'm gonna try and give you some challenges as well, and then you can also address that. So OpenAI recently raised $1 billion, right? So do you think with the evolution of AI and technology, I have three questions. One is, do you think there's a correlation between AI and technology and the cause of human disconnection? Because Gen Zs are known to be one of the generation in history with the most disconnection between one another. And two is, what do you actually think about, Elon Musk's microchip, right? Like, we've heard lots about that. Do you think that is even ethical to even consider? And number three is, do you think overall with AI, are we in like a bubble, like, dot-com bubble? Like, do you think AI will, or technology will eventually crash one day, or we're going to go back to like simple technology? And yeah, basically those three questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Before we get on to that, I just want to mention I now know why I said 1980s because the Macintosh was first introduced in 1980s, and then because the Macintosh is it's like the same company, so I was like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyways, to answer your question, first of all, OpenAI $1 billion funding. OpenAI is a very interesting company because their current product is ChatGPT. ChatGPT is very good. Everyone knows ChatGPT is like, oh, it's like the go-to place. And people already have developed this sense of familiarity with this product, which is very hard for a company to achieve. Because the only company that have achieved this are companies like Google, where you're like, oh, I open my computer, I see Google, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And then like Zoom has established themselves through COVID because it was like one of the only ways for people to host business meetings. So that's why Zoom had persist. If it wasn't for like COVID, do you think Zoom will be as popular as today? Well, maybe, but it'll take a much longer time for it to happen, right? So this emphasizes my like wanted to like say like the familiarity that people get is very lingering. It lingers for a long time. Unless that product does something really bad, then they're like, oh damn, this is not good. I need to stop using this. Right. So at the current point, I feel like OpenAI is focusing on too much advertising and marketing rather than developing its research capabilities or following more into the safety and ethics part. Um, and Google, I guess, it leverages its vast data resources to enhance the AI models. And then Meta with Llama 3, well, they're pushing for open source models to provide open access to AI. This
Mhm.
is very important because this is something that's different. In order for Meta to release this open source model, it's a very risky decision, right? Because they trained for so long and they're releasing all the model's details so everyone can use it locally rather than OpenAI, where they pay an inference fee, right? OpenAI is not OpenAI anymore. It's low-key closed AI these days because like almost everything is closed source, but it is very good. So this balance between the familiarity and then when the actual other models that might be better in the future, like to prevail, I don't know how long that will be. Because, for example, Meta, I bet most of the people that doesn't know coding or does not do AI research have not heard about Llama 3.1. They do not know that Llama 3.1 can perform at the level of GPT 4.0, right? Because
Yeah.
all they know is
Mhm.
ChatGPT. So in order for this llama to like prevail, they have to somehow increase their popularity drastically. Once that
Mhm.
happens, then that's fine.
Yeah. So back to like the second question, what do you think about the microchip?
The microchip. Oh yeah. So are you talking about like the chip that you put in your head or
Yep,
microchip?
Neuralinks,
Oh yeah, yeah,
Neuralinks
Neuralink. Yeah, okay.
microchip. Yeah.
I wanted to so let me finish one more thing about OpenAI. I think like it's gonna do well recently, but eventually it's gonna like go down because they don't because to train their models even like to make it better, it takes too much training like data to train. They're gonna run out, and then it costs way too much money to train the model. So it's very hard to train the next like GPT-5. Even if they will probably be able to make GPT-5, but GPT-6, what about GPT-6 and 7? Right, it's gonna take a much longer time compared to GPT-5 to come out. So like look at the time for GPT-4 to release after GPT-3 compared to now GPT-4 releasing to GPT-5, and in the future it's gonna be longer. And then you know how recently they're gonna release Sora 2? You know you saw
Yeah.
like the ad about like the video generation AI, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So the Sora 2 right now is getting heavily criticized because it takes 10 minutes to generate a 10-second clip. And then other models out there, such as Rundown AI, can generate it in 15 seconds. So, but no one knows about it. But I'm just saying, like, other models gonna outcompete OpenAI eventually. It's just how do we make it popular? How are they gonna become popular and prevail? And then for the topic of Neuralinks, I think Neuralink is very. It can be very good and very scary at the same time, because this technology is very similar to it's basically BCI. It's an invasive brain-computer interface, and the goal of it at first will be definitely helping people with disabilities, helping people with high HCIs. If you don't know what that is, it's high cervical spinal cord injury, because those people cannot really operate. They need something to help their brain system, and that's where BCI technology comes in. And usually for people with such high severity injuries, they usually need something called invasive BCI. Neuralink is an invasive BCI. I personally do not like invasive BCI because I think it's very bad. I do not think anyone's gonna want to put a chip in their brain. So that's why I feel like another direction, also called non-invasive BCI, will be a better direction to go into. I'm not saying that invasive BCI sucks. It's very, very impressive. It's very amazing. It's like a magical device. But I feel like people are definitely gonna be more prone to a device where you don't have to literally cut a hole in your brain and then stick a chip in there, right?
Hmm.
Kind of scary. But let me ask you this: think about this scenario. If you were offered to live in a dream world where all your dreams can come true, just like however you imagine it, right? I know it sounds like it's literally the Matrix. It's like however you imagine it. It's not like, oh, I just get everything that I want. It's like this. It's like living in the same thing as what you're living right now, but you experience it, but it's not theoretically real. And then you can choose to experience it however you want, however that many times you want, right? If that happens, would you choose a life where you can live many times and then live very happily versus living in a real world where everything is might be not as perfect, where you do not get to choose, and then you have to do everything yourself, but it's real? What do you think people are gonna choose? You might say like everyone's gonna choose that they want to be real because it's the real world and the real stuff is happening. But how are you gonna differentiate a fictional world when you don't know we're in a simulation. In fact, didn't we see like that Kuskadar video talking about how, oh yeah, the percentage of us being in a simulation right now is actually 70%. So, hey, no one knows, right? So that's why it's a very controversial topic. AI is already being so criticized because of its ethical considerations. Imagine how critical people are going to get for such a technology that can literally affect how people transfer memory. Because in the end of it, the experience is more about can we change and alter or augment human memory while keeping them alive. Normally, this is instant kill. It's literally instant kill. If you change human memory by like even 0.0001%, the person will die instantly. So yeah.
Yeah, this whole topic is definitely super interesting. We could go on for this, for hours and hours.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, with this whole computing network thing, like I don't even think we're even close to duplicating an entire brain. Like we're like probably millions of years
No, no,
from.
actually, I think like for memory upload, we're not that far off actually, because what BCI is already able to understand whatever you're thinking, and so that neuroscience research has been really advanced. If you're like in the field to understand, it's actually scarily close to achieving what you think is in the sci-fi movies. So for Neuralink to become usable, it'll probably only take like I predict around. They say it's 30 years. I think it's gonna take 50 years. And then another thing is for memory upload, it's definitely gonna take way longer than that, maybe like 100 to 150 years. But it's not gonna take like 500 years. No, because as AI improve, the way that we solve problem will also increase speed.
So you think we'll be able to generate basically a human replicate with full emotions, with full memory and things in the next couple hundred years, or just 100 years?
Um, I'm not sure about emotion. I'm only sure about memory uploading. Memory upload does not equal emotion. Simulating a human in a virtual environment versus storing a person's memory are two different things. It's actually two different fields almost. But if you're able to replicate and simulate a human's emotion, that is very scary because that's sentimental AI. Sentimental AI is a field that people say is impossible to achieve because AI is supposed to be non-sentimental. It's supposed to be purely like probabilistic. But I do think sentimental AI is gonna like happen one day. It's just how when we no one knows because maybe there might be another AI winter. Who knows? Let's just say that this will not happen. But let's just say like tomorrow there's a massive hurricane happen and then destroy the data centers for OpenAI and then Google in Florida, and then this caused all their data to be destroyed, then okay, then that's gonna take like a while to repair, right? So no one really knows like how long it's gonna take, but it's definitely gonna happen, and it's not gonna be that long. And in fact, there is a chance that we might see it in our lifetime.
Mhm. Yeah, makes sense. But with this whole topic, just concluding on it, I feel like at the end of the day, it's all about, I guess, like the skills that you develop, right, on all of the networks, because that's going to be the thing that makes yourself rise no matter what field you're investigating, if it's AI and stuff like that. So, for example, for yourself, Tony, I always believe that since you're a high achiever in, the AI field, right? For example, if tomorrow the AI field somehow blows up or something happens in the world, you never know. You never even knew that COVID came. You're still going to be able to survive because you have these skills that you've developed and obviously the network, right? And the skills to be a successful person since, you will actively reach out and stuff like that. So I feel like those are going to be the core characteristics for anyone who's trying to succeed in anything in life, which is basically inevitable. So for anyone listening, like what are some of your other biggest advice that you would have that we haven't talked about, if any?
Yeah. So for anyone listening, I feel like embracing curiosity and the ability to challenge yourself is one of the most important skill set to have. You want to have the ability to push beyond your comfort zone. I know it sounds very cliche, but If you don't, you will get stuck. You will be stuck and you will not achieve real growth. Since learning is not about just absorbing information, which is what the school system tried to make you think. It's more about questioning, critiquing, applying, and building upon standard practices to become non-conventional. Also, consider the broader impact of your work. Technology is a very powerful tool, and with that, it comes responsibilities. You want to create technology that are not just innovative, but also very ethical and inclusive. But most importantly, you want to have fun, right?
Mm.
I don't know why so much people emphasize on winning competition. I understand it's very good for your resume, but competition, I always say it's 50% luck. No one can determine the mood of the judge that's looking at your project on that day. So, have fun with it. Passion fuels success. If I was not passionate about the work that I do, I don't think I'll be able to get my internship. I do not think I would have gotten the opportunities I gotten because having passion is inspiring. It's something that attracts people to work with you, to trust you. So be happy, have fun, right? We're living in this such a rare opportunity where AI is at our hands. So why not try it? Why not use it? What's the harm? Regardless of whatever field that you're trying to do, you can be a pianist, but hey, there's AI music. Why not look into it, right? Why not create an AI music generation that can create accompaniment, that can create accompaniment to supplement and better your performances. And then I know we didn't really talk that much about the high school side of how high schoolers can start AI research. What I would say is this: for high schoolers, doesn't matter what age you are. You can be a freshman right now. If you're a freshman, well, you're lucky because I wish I'm a freshman right now. If you're not a freshman, you're a junior or senior. Like I'm a senior myself, but to be honest, it doesn't matter what age you are. It's always the best time to start now. Because if you don't start now, you keep saying like, "Oh, let me just do it next week, next week, next week." You never start. Start now. Search up a YouTube video. What's the harm? It's like 20 minutes, right? You probably spend more time watching YouTube shorts. I no offense, but like, hey, you understand what I mean. A lot of Gen Z students might be spending much more time watching other videos rather than a 20-minute video. And also, there's a lot of like fun YouTube videos on AI too. They're like brain rot AI tutorials or like brain rot videos talking about what is breastfeed, what is like BFS, DFS, etc. So yeah, watch it, learn it, right? You really learn. And then once you do, try it. Create hobby projects. In fact, it's very funny. Every single time when I created a competition project, it was purely for the competition, I lost. Every single time I created a hobby project just for the purpose of fun, for like some goofy purpose, I literally created like a homework writer. And then that apparently won a competition. Obviously I had to rephrase that, not like, oh yeah, this is for homework. But still, it's very funny how like when when I'm not expecting to win, then that's where the result come out. So that's why I always say results 50% luck. Do not try to go for a competition just for the purpose of winning. Go for go for it because it's a side project. Because it's a side thing. Competition is not the main thing. The purpose of developing that project to make that project good. It's not about winning. Because competition is just something that like, oh, I made this project and this competition aligned with my project. Let me just submit it real quick. Because there's not that much effort I have to do. Right? And then yeah. And then if you're a high schooler, hey, well you definitely watch more podcasts, right? Like the Gen Z Fast Lane. And then you should definitely also join Apping Club. And then,
Yeah.
well, you can reach out to us. I believe both me and Bosco in the Discord server. So you can ask questions, etc. And if you're interested in pursuing a research opportunity, well, you can feel free to ask any of the experienced members in Apping Club or even myself. I'll send the Apping Club Discord server link in like the Zoom chat, but I'm pretty sure everyone here have already joined. But I'll just send it just in case.
Nice. Also send the Gen Z Fastlane YouTube. So we're on YouTube. So a bit about the Gen Z Fastlane as well, as Tony mentioned. we're basically a YouTube podcast where we interview successful Gen Z founders or people who are passionate about their field. So, some of our other guests that we have, come from worldwide. So we had a um university medical student who is in his third year, and he created a super interesting startup, like SaaS startup on Memo cards, which is super interesting. So basically what we're trying to do is build a more connected Gen Z world because, as AI and tech is evolving, right, with the disconnection and everything, we also want to inspire other Gen Zs to connect with one another. But I think this is a really good way to end the podcast. So Tony, do you want to do some Q&A as well?
I think, well, I don't know if anyone here have any questions, but if you have, you can type in the chat, and yeah, and then we'll see if maybe we'll answer some. But if there's none, then I think that's a good concluding point for today.
Sounds good.